Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we have something a little bit different. It is a prepping related game called Conflicted the Game, and it is a series of card decks for different scenarios. I'll be explaining a little bit why I decided to buy these card decks and give them a little bit of a review. So, Conflicted is a card game where you basically do scenario exercises. It's a very simple game. It's not really even a game, but more of just a set of exercises. So let's have a look at the rules. The rules are exactly the same in all of the different decks. It is meant for 3+ players, although you could very easily make the rules fit even just a solitaire type of game. So it says here, every scenario assumes modern civilization is collapsing and the apocalypse is currently taking place. And that's a bit of a strong statement, but let's look further. It says, shuffle the deck and place it in the center of the table. The first player reads a card and each player gives their answer. That's one round. And the player asking the question awards the card that was just read, which is equivalent of 1 point, to the person with the best answer. So the one reading the card is the one deciding who has the best answer. The game moves clockwise and the process repeats. Play as many rounds as desired. The player with the most awarded cards at the end of the game wins. So very, very simple. You could even just read the cards and think of proper answers. So let's have a look at a few of the cards, and I will explain why I decided to order these cards for training purposes. So what I have opened up here is deck number 7, which is all about financial collapse, which is a very real thing and has happened in our current world in the last few decades several times. So it's not completely unreasonable scenario. So let's have a look at a few of the scenarios here. The question is overpopulation a real problem? Why? So that could be a very broad question and answer, and depending on who you are playing with, you could have very different type of scenarios and answers that you might not have considered yourself. The second one is much more specific. It says, in 1913, Argentina was the 10th wealthiest country in the world, ahead of Norway, France, Germany, and Japan. In 2015, it is in 66th place, with a per capita income of $7,600. What could cause a country to go from one economic extreme to another in 100 years? Are any of those reasons a reality in your country today? So that's a very interesting question, I think, and it also shows that the game is not meant only for US customers, as it asks the question, are any of those reasons a reality in your country today? Which I think makes it much more versatile. And Argentina is one of the examples of a real life collapse or perhaps a massive crisis in the country. There's a very good book, Surviving the Economic Collapse, that I will link to in the description, which I highly recommend. It's about the Argentina crisis, and it's a very good textbook for preppers. I will also link to all of these decks. There are several decks for different purposes. Like I said, the one I opened was called the Financial Collapse. It's deck number 7. I also bought the Downfall deck, which is the first one. It's a very overarching, larger, not so specific scenario. I also got deck number 2, Survival Scenarios. It's more specifically about practical survival rather than economic concepts. I also bought deck number 6, Nuclear Fallout deck. Again, this is a possible scenario. I personally live in an area that was affected by the Chernobyl crisis of 1986, so it is not, again, unreasonable to assume that a crisis similar to that could take place again. I also bought, this is more for fun, the Conspiracy deck, number 8. This has much more unrealistic and, let's say, more game-like scenarios that I don't truly believe in, such as aliens or vast government conspiracies. I don't subscribe to those ideologies. That's more for fun. But let's have a look at a couple of other examples still, so you get a broader view of what kind of questions there could be. So we looked at the Argentina one. The next one is, what is the difference between a bank bailout and a bank bail-in? How would each of them affect you? I think that's a very interesting question, and if you don't know the answer, this could very well prompt you to search the internet perhaps for information on bank bailouts. The next one is, what do you think of the United Nations Agenda 21? Again, I'm assuming not everybody knows what that is, so this should give you the incentive to go and have a look at the United Nations Agenda 21. So that was my short overview of Conflicted the game. I'm not going to read through a lot of the cards here because I want to actually play this with my friends, and I think it could make the enjoyment of the game a little bit less if I already knew the questions beforehand and could kind of subconsciously prepare for the answers. But I do recommend it. Like I said, it could be just a scenario exercise. You don't even need to play the game with the rules. It's very, very simple, just a set of questions on cards. It's not very expensive. One deck costs somewhere between $10 to $15. When you go to Conflicted's website, they have a bunch of kind of automatically applicable discount codes if you subscribe to their newsletter or something like that. This is not in any way sponsored by them, by the way. I bought all of this with my own money, but you're going to be paying somewhere between $10 to $15 per deck, which I think is fine. You could easily come up with these scenarios by yourself, but for $10, why not support somebody in the community trying to do something a little bit different. They are, by the way, also actual playing cards. So if you would go into a scenario where you only had this deck, but you wanted to play a round of poker, you could do that. As you see, it has the actual card deck suits and values there. So that was my review of Conflicted the game. Thanks for watching and hope to see you again.